Good afternoon. Welcome to the latest segment of Voices from Our Schools. I'm Kimberly Stender, Volunteer Coordinator of the Amherst Public Schools, and today we have with us some representatives from our parent guardian organizations at each of our public schools. I want to thank them all for joining us, and we're looking forward to a great conversation based on your successes and challenges that you face as a PGO. So let's begin by introducing our guests, and from the high school we have.
Hi, my name is Colleen Austin, and I have a child in Wildwood in 6th grade, and I have a sophomore at the high school, and I'm currently the chair of the high school PGO.
Thanks, Colleen.
Hi, my name is Becky Demling. I'm here representing the Amherst Regional Middle School. I have a 7th grader, and I have a 5th grader and a 3rd grader at Crocker Farm.
Thanks. And
Hi,
Angela.
Kim. Thanks for
Hello.
having us.
You're welcome.
I'm Angela Mills. I'm one of the co-chairs at Crocker Farm, and I have two boys, one in 2nd and one in 4th grade.
I'm Pam Reedkirk from Fort River, the chair of the PGO there, and I have a kindergartner, a 6th grader, and an 8th grader at the middle school.
Susan Bain Bellack, and I have 3 children at Wildwood, where I am the co-chair of the PGO.
Well, thank you for joining us all. I'm really excited to be here, and not to be left out, I have 2 boys at the high school, so I know exactly what we're all thinking. So, well, let's begin by talking about perhaps how you got involved in being a PGO member. What's important to you, and what's important to the mission of your organization and your school? So, who would like to start? Angela.
I was intrigued with the really strong sense of community that I felt when we arrived at Crocker after redistricting. And I saw the great work that Becky did when she was the co-chair of the PGO and the amazing playground structures that resulted from their hard work. So it was a really vibrant community when I arrived. And it's good to be in the schools and get to know the kids' friends, but also feel that great connection to the whole learning mission. I think that's one of the reasons that it's easy to get involved, because you see this really exemplary school and you want to be a part of it.
Yeah. And Pam, how about you?
So I, for many years, I ran just individual programs, Picture Day, the book swap, and I loved being more sort of project-oriented. And it wasn't until my kindergartner started school that let's say I was asked to do it. I think a lot of people don't really know what it means to be a chair, and so you get involved. And it's a steep learning curve for sure. And then you get involved, and you realize how you really, really make a difference. And it's a great way to stay connected with the school and with the teachers and with the kids, really. And so I'm enjoying it a lot. It's great.
It's critical work.
It is, yeah.
Absolutely.
More and more.
And I think for me, it was very much the same. When my last went to Wildwood, I thought, well, if not now, when? I have all 3 in the same school. But it's definitely an experience where you feel like you're making a difference in the immediate community. And there are particulars to our school community where goals of equity and making a difference are particularly important. You can really make a difference. I do want to say that the leadership committees that I serve, the people I serve with, we're a strong team. I think they are at all of the schools, and we're really sort of kept afloat by all of the countless volunteer hours that go on in the school. There are so many unsung heroes who don't have titles, so we're really figureheads.
Thank you for all you do. It is a lot of work and a lot of time commitment and a lot of sacrifice. So Colleen, what's going on at the high school?
Well, in terms of getting involved in the PGOs, for me it really started when my daughter was at Wildwood, and my interest was being in her classroom, starting as a helper once a week, and it was really more sort of self-interest of wanting to be there, wanting to know what the teacher was like, wanting to know her friends. And then as you start getting involved, you really start to get bought into the success of the school. And so I think that what happens is you just naturally start taking on more and more responsibility. Things need to be done, and I've never been great at saying no. And then as the kids get older, there's no more time in the classroom, and that's certainly evident in the high school, and it's really hard sometimes to even know what's happening there. So I've loved being on the PGO at the high school, to be able to know the teachers, to know the administration, to really, in doing newsletters and things like that, you need to know what's happening. And so it's a great communication source. And it really feels like, depending on the initiative and the energy of the group, the PGO group, you really can get so much done. It's kind of limited only by how limited you are.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Wow. And Becky?
I got involved in Amherst when we moved here. We moved at the very end of April one year, and my kids had a very short time to be in school, and I came in with the idea that I want to show them that they can build a community quickly, that they can be part of something. And for me, that was modeling that if we jump in feet first, we will become part of a community. We've been here 3.5 years, and we feel so entrenched. And it's because we've gotten involved at school. And I think it also shows my kids that I think school's important on a very different level than just doing homework. That I view it as a life lesson, and that I want to model for them that service is important, and that responsibility for your group, your society, is part of who I want them to be as adults. And by modeling that now and having them be part of that now, they're learning great life lessons that I couldn't otherwise teach them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. In fact, it's the results of your work that are evident, and we truly appreciate, what you do at home and in our schools. So those are very nice tributes to what you do, and you should all take your hats off to yourselves once in a while. So let's talk about maybe some of the challenges that you face in your schools now. You mentioned redistricting and equity, and how, as PGO groups, you want to circumvent those things and make successes out of, some of these challenges. Does anyone want to take that first?
I'll start with that.
Okay, thank you, Becky.
Going to middle school this year, it's a very different place because it's the first time you're really brought together with other families and other students from different schools, where you all have to kind of assimilate in one place. And, just as students are learning where they fit in the larger group, parents are kind of learning where they fit and how to be a middle school parent, how to take on this new, my child doesn't want me in their classroom. I don't really belong there anymore, and I think the Family School Partnership, which is what the middle school PGO is called, I think it's a great way to know what's going on and to be involved when you've just lost that time in the classroom part of being a volunteer. So our biggest challenge is bringing so many different schools, because it's not only Amherst schools, it's 6 schools coming together for the first time under one building, and figuring out how everyone's going to be involved and get along. And I think that within itself is a challenge. I think we've done some things, already this year that we've implemented to address those challenges and help people start building that new community. We had a great success we held our first special ed open house, where families of students on IEPs could come to middle school over the summer, get their schedule, get their locker, have parent coffees, meet, start building a new community. I am the parent of a child with special needs, and you don't fit in the school the way a typical child fits. As much as you want to, it's a different experience. My kids' issues are just in a different place than most parents' issues at this time. So it was a great way to bring lots of families together. We had great participation. We had huge attendance for the summer, and it was a great way to start building connections with different schools. And it's something this was the test case, that will expand to different subgroups, over the coming years, where we can really have subgroups coming together, building their new subgroup, different families coming together, and really kind of scaffolding up, from subgroups, a larger level of involvement.
That's excellent. Thank you for putting that together.
You're welcome.
I think one of the challenges, if we could just go back to the redistricting, is rebuilding community. I sort of likened last year to people were sort of circling each other and kind of figuring out where they could fit in. And the PGO is a way for that to happen. And one of the successes that Wildwood has had this year is we launched something called Our Power, because we acknowledged that, I mean, the fact of the matter is parents are very, very busy now, and I think everybody, a common denominator for every family is they want to do something for their child's school. And within the first week of school, we had 130 volunteers sign up through Our Power, just people who said, here's my email, and if you need something, we can come and I may say no, but I may say yes. And so it's just, I think PGOs in general, I'm sure this is happening throughout the country, they're adapting to the realities of modern day life. And a lot of work happens over email, and people don't necessarily meet all the time.
Right.
We're not lunching, let's say. So, but a lot of work gets done that way. But the redistricting is, I think it's actually an exciting time to get involved because community is forming right now.
And with the redistricting, it did seem like you received a great influx of volunteers and people who became reinterested in the schools. You know, these are new buildings for our children, and you know, in some cases, they didn't know their neighbors or people who rode their buses, and this gave parents a nice impetus to get involved again and make a difference in the school communities. And Pam, how about you in terms of your redistricting at Fort River?
Yeah, I think at Fort River it's a little different because we didn't change as much, I think, as Wildwood. Not sure about Crocker Farm, but we actually went down in numbers, and so volunteerism is a problem, but we have the problem of people not coming forward. We also have a lot of Spanish-speaking families now that. And the PGO particularly, we've been struggling this year with we do a lot of things last minute. We don't necessarily have time to get it translated or even know who to go to, and that's something we've been talking about within the school is how to better communicate with all our families because it's a really big issue, and we don't we're scrambling to get word out there to get the blog, and we don't translate the blog and things like that. So. We are probably going to adapt this Our Power program because Susan's said it's been so successful. So we think we're going to probably launch that in September and try to really re-energize our volunteers. We've got the big things covered, but it's it's when parents show up to help serve pizza at something. It's the little jobs. That's kind of how you get them in the door, and then they feel part of it and think, oh, this isn't so bad. Actually, your PTO is kind of nice, and so. But it's getting people to take that first step to sign up for something, and so that's one of our goals is to try to be able to reach out to all our families better. So.
And Angela at Crocker?
I think one of our focuses is having events where parents can just show up and feel comfortable. So the Coffee with the Principal, I think we're thinking about offering that in the evening a couple times this year for parents who have to be at work really early. And then we've stuck with events that have worked, like our Welcome Back Picnic had great turnout this September. And then we're really trying to encourage parents to share their ideas for enrichment programs like our Wednesday clubs that begin in January and run through the spring. And we're hoping to get more families to attend the school dances. We're doing a Valentine's dance this year. We'd like to have live music, and we'd really love for parents to partake in the event with the kids and maybe split it so that the younger grades are in one space and the older grades are in another space and offer two different types of live music on the same night.
That would be fun. Because as they get older, they want it to be cool.
Right.
And those 4th and 5th graders, it's not the same as being in kindergarten anymore.
Right.
And Colleen, I know at the high school, from when I worked at that main office, and you always hosted those coffees with the principal, they were so popular, and I assume that they're still as popular. People want to speak with Mark Jackson and get to know what's going on within the schools. Can you comment a little bit more about what goes on with those? I know you offer them in the day and the night.
Yeah, so we, every other month, we shift, so it's whether it's an afternoon or an evening, so that we can reach out to more families. I think that one of the most important roles that we play in the PGO is trying to bridge that gap between the school and the families, particularly where families don't feel comfortable, foraying in on their own. So the coffees are a really nice way to bring people in. We try to pick subjects that will be provide the most incentive to come. Always make sure we have great coffee and desserts, and Mark's on hand to answer questions. So those are really well attended. And in an effort to reach out to new families, although we're not part of redistricting, there's always an influx of new families to the district. So this year the PGO worked together with a newly formed group in the high school called the School Climate Control. And we basically made students like ambassadors. So the kids wore Ask Me stickers on the first day of school, and during, I think, one of the open auditorium events that day, kids could come and just say, like, I'd love to be one. And so tons of the students wore these Ask Me stickers. And so as kids were walking around new, trying to find things, it just, I think sort of broke down one of the barriers to feeling comfortable to ask. And then we hosted a couple of new family events. We had there's always a tour of the building that happens, and we pulled aside the new families and had bagels and coffee with them. And then prior to the 9th grade and new family orientation, we also invited those families for dinner and brought our kids and tried to make them sit with different families to spread us out. But it was really nice to see the new families bonding with one another. So, one of the things we're kind of always trying to do is look at how we can communicate better. And so we also write the newsletter. And, we face the same sort of challenge. It's written by myself and another volunteer the night before it goes out. We're spending hours sort of culling all the information and putting it out there, and then it's only in one language. And not everybody has a computer. So we have 1,700 people get it each month, but, there's definitely people not receiving it, whether they don't have a computer or they don't speak the language, and so that sort of remains a challenge for us as well.
Yeah. Well, our demographics in town are changing, as we're all knowledgeable of. So within the superintendent's office, we are still reaching out to these families and to these pockets and really trying to pull everyone in. We see schools as community centers now, and not just for children, but for parents and guardians and families. So we are working on different programs to help you all find translators and hopefully provide them at open houses for you and for translating your newsletters. But these things take time and finding the right people to do those types of jobs. So we'll keep our work going in that regard. Now, I do have to represent Pelham. They could not be here today, but I do want to just touch upon some things that they're doing up on the hill, as we like to say. That their PGO implemented a T-shirt initiative where each child and each teacher received a "Be a Buddy, Not a Bully" T-shirt, and they received those towards the beginning of school. And it really, I think, helped to ease some of the fears that some kids had recently with bullying in our region and whatnot. And the fact that everyone kind of gathered around this initiative was very helpful to their school community. They're also organizing an ice skating party, and at Winterfest, they want to have a sled race, those, whatever they're called, soapbox sleds.
It has to snow first.
Oh, yeah, let's hope that-
They do
tonight.
Just saying.
I didn't mind it not snowing. Okay, so that's what I just wanted to say that on Pelham, and they do a great job up there too. So I just wanted to include them in the conversation. I know, Becky, you wanted to talk a little bit about 501c3 and how that might be able to be implemented within the schools.
I more wanted to have a little forum where we could talk about, I think it's confusing for some people when they make donations that the PGOs aren't all 501c3s. So this seemed like a great venue to communicate.
Could you
that-
quickly just say what a 501c3
Sure.
is for our audience?
A 501c3 is a registered nonprofit that is a non-taxable, non-tax-paying organization. I know Fort River is a 501c3.
We
Is
are
that high
not.
school?
Yeah.
And so apparently only Fort River is. And the other schools we are working on it. We are working as a district PGO to figure out how to solve this problem. We have met with the budget subcommittee and trying to find ways that we can become a 501c3. But until such point as we are a 501c3, donations to most schools are not tax deductible. It's a large process to become a 501c3. It's a huge undertaking, which is why I think most schools have not yet done it. It is definitely a focus, I think, for many schools this year. But I wanted to just have a forum where we could really communicate that, volunteers to help do that. I think there's definitely, when meeting with Superintendent Garrick and other principals, I think it's a very time-critical thing that will happen soon, but it's a manpower issue as well as a financial issue.
Well, and I think it should be a district priority because we raise a lot of money because, I mean, as budgets get cut, the teachers rely on the money we raise and hand out in mini grants or however we do it, and it becomes more and more critical. So whatever the district can do to make fundraising easier for us, because I think people would consider larger gifts or if they were tax
Or
deductible.
grants. There are a lot of grants we can't apply for because we're not 501c3. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place in a lot of ways. And I think one of the positive things that's come out of this year, at least since I joined the PGO, is I'm hoping it continues, that there's collaboration, like we're having conversations about what's going on in each other's schools, and we're sharing best practices. And while each school can maintain their identity and there are things that work, we find ourselves saying, what do you do for the book fair? And oh my gosh, well, so collaboration and communication, I think, are becoming increasingly important because, budgets are getting cut and the money has to come from somewhere, and there are some sort of issues that have laid dormant for a while that need to be, addressed.
We have 2 minutes. So aside from your monthly meetings, when you all get together as PGOs, do you meet outside of those parameters and talk about perhaps some of the subjects that you just mentioned? Or is it really you just kind of go about doing your own thing for the month and then you meet?
Coffee.
The elementary,
We have a lot of coffee.
the elementary schools
Coffee and food
have
is-
met informally. But, do you mean our own PGO executive boards or?
Well,
as a-
as a group, as all 6 of you coming together and meeting informally and trying to solve some of these problems and troubleshoot a little bit.
I rely on Becky all the time. I run things by her as the former co-chair of the Crocker Farm PGO. I reach out. There's a lot of institutional knowledge that I had no feeling for when I first started, and she taught me a lot about empathetic listening, which is a great skill to have.
That's true.
Email's a wonderful thing.
Email. Where would we be without it?
Well, one of the things we've talked about at Fort River is trying to get some sort of a teacher representative, and I know they don't have enough to do, and but because there is, something that concerns everybody is when this group of our executive board, when we retire or whatever, move on, it's like reinventing the wheel all the time, and I think that we're becoming more and more entrenched into what each school does. It's kind of critical work, and so to have some continuity, and that would that would have to be a staff member. That would be, and it's a new idea, so it hasn't been
Then we have to
formally
change the name.
proposed, but yeah, PTO, right?
Change the name again.
Yeah. That's something definitely worth investigating,
Yeah.
for the well-being of all your parent
Passing
guardian
the
groups. Exactly, passing the baton. But I just want to thank all of you for coming here today and meeting and sharing your ideas. And I wish all your families a very happy holiday season. And we look forward to working with you for many years to come and strengthening what you do in our schools for our students and our staffs. We really appreciate it. And without folks like you, I don't know where we would be. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.